Hello and welcome to the 11th episode in our Crusader Kings 3 tutorial series, version 1.0.3. Today, we'll be taking a look at decisions, wards, stress, and education traits. So, we've discussed some of the smaller decisions in the past, inviting knights to spend prestige, claimants, pilgrimage, things like that. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of these other more major decisions that we've somewhat ignored to this point. A lot of these are either faith or culture specific. For instance, unifying Italy is something that we can do if we have all of the titles underneath here and 8,000 prestige. We can now unify the peninsula. We can found new kingdoms, found new universities, consecrate bloodlines, and found holy orders. Now, this unified Italy decision is an example of a cultural specific one. If we were to hop, skip, and a boat ride over to the Byzantine Empire, you would instead see we have dismantle the German pretenders, which is the HRE, mending the Great Schism, which is relation to Catholicism, restoring the Roman Empire, and the dynasty of many crowns. These are all examples. However, you're going to notice that found holy order and consecrate bloodline are both here. In addition to that, if we didn't have a kingdom title, we would also have the decision to make our own kingdom, just like over here, and essentially those ones are going to get access to any other character. Any character can found a new kingdom so long as they do not have one. However, the found holy order and consecrate bloodline are reliant on you having an organized religion with a head of faith. The patriarch is the example for the Byzantine Empire, and the Pope is the example for the Catholic faith. If we go ahead and take a look at this, you're going to see that the found holy order requires us to have a kingdom, space for them to live in, and then the head of faith has to like you, and you have to have sufficient devotion. Similarly, the consecrate bloodline is essentially the same requirements, only slightly higher. We need religious icon and 2,500 piety, rather than 1,000. Now, the benefit a holy order provides essentially creates a Knights Templar or a Teutonic Order sort of thing for your own kingdom. The difference is that if you become the patron of a holy order by clicking this decision, you get to recruit them for free instead of the normal piety cost. When you do so, they will be located here in the military tab underneath holy orders. There currently are none, and we are missing the piety to do so. But if they ever get created by you, by a decision, by an event, by anyone else, they will be located right here. Now, this can be handy if you tend to go to war a lot with the enemy faith. For instance, if you are one of the Catholic rulers over here in Spain, it might be a good idea given the amount of holy wars required for the Reconquista. It will really add up over time. In addition to that, if you have a pious character who can go ahead and create the order, then as you go down the line, the characters who are less pious will still have the ability to recruit the holy orders. So that's something that is very important. In addition to that, as we talked about in our piety uses episode, holy wars cost piety. So if you're the one actually declaring the holy wars, the problem with that is that you're going to run out of piety, and you won't have enough to also recruit the order for every single offensive war. You'll be able to recruit them for defensive ones, but offensive wars, you might not have enough piety to declare all of the holy wars and recruit a foreign holy order. So that is another reason you might want to found your own. For that reason, for the less pious rulers, just several examples, okay? The next one, consecrate bloodline, what that'll do is it'll actually give you a special modifier. If we go here to the encyclopedia and we look up bloodline, we're going to see there's actually several types. There's blood of the prophet, divine blood, and consecrated bloodline. This is the one that you will get if you have consecrated blood decision, and this will pass down to any legitimate heirs that you happen to have. As long as it has this little circle around it like that, it is always inherited by your children, so you don't have to worry about it being temporarily inherited like pure-blooded, for instance, which can be inherited rather than guaranteed. Okay. So that's what that decision does. It's very simple. It seems really complicated, but that's basically what it is. And then found university. This is a very late game decision. Not only does it require a lot of fame, but it requires a development level of 40. The highest leveled province in both the 867 start and the 1066 start is in Byzantium. And even as of 1077, it only has a development of 36. So Don't plan on making that decision anytime if you start in somewhere, let's say up here, or even a normal start game. Unless you happen to have access to a particularly profitable capital, it's not going to happen. Even France itself only has a development of 22. London has a development of 9 at this point, Middlesex 13. So again, a very late days decision that will really push you through the last of the civics and military technologies. So if that's something you really want to do and you want to max that out, that might be a fun decision for you. I feel that any of these major decisions are really campaign defining goals that you can set your mind to. Holy Orders and Found New Kingdom less so, but unifying Italy, Found University, mending the schism, stuff like that, a lot of the major decisions you can sort of build your fun campaign around. So rather than conquering the whole world, maybe your goal can be start as a single county count and try to form Italy, or something to that effect. So I think they make for good campaign goals. Okay, so then below that, let's go ahead and get started and talk about wards and characters. So as you notice, we have a couple notification here, and one you're going to notice is that we can designate a guardian. Now, in theory, you can actually do this before they turn the age of 6, but if they have yet to be assigned a guardian, your children will bring up this notification when they turn 6. In this case, to showcase this, we're going to go ahead and put them underneath ourselves, and we're going to send that proposal. It automatically happens because we're going to obviously say yes to ourselves. And we're going to go over here to our other daughter. If you want to do this early so you don't have to worry about it, let's say right when they're born, you can right-click on them, and then click on Educate Child, and we're going to assign her to myself as well. You can have any 2 wards at any given time. As you can see here, our 2 ward slots are filled up. Our husband has no wards, so perhaps we can go ahead and assign him our son. Now, this can come in handy for a couple reasons. One, if you have a male preference law, it doesn't really benefit you to make your female characters particularly outstanding. You don't really need to fine-tune what traits and stuff they get. It can be helpful, but it's not like the end of the world. And they will gain opinion of us. If they are your heir, they gain a 25 opinion modifier. If they are just your close relative, i.e. your daughter, they gain 15. So if you have a lot of children and you're a male-dominated faith, i.e. like Catholicism or something like that, or even more so any of the Muslim faiths, you can sort of pass off children for opinion if you don't really care how they turn out. Or if you are a primogenitor succession and you have a bunch of sons, maybe you can pass them off for opinion if you don't really care how they turn out, right? They're not inheriting land, they're not your heir, no big deal. Okay, so that's one thing. Now, in addition to that, when they turn 6, you're going to notice this special button popping up here. This is something that I missed for practically the entire course of a campaign. I actually thought what education you got was random, but it's actually hiding right here. You gain no notification of this. And you have to do it between the ages of 6 and 9. And this is where you get to steer the character. Okay, so when they turn 3, they're going to pick up their first trait. They'll get more as they get older, but they can go ahead here. And so you can sort of assign which way they want them to go. Now, my daughter at the age of 6 has 7 martial, and she's already rowdy. So you know what? Why not? We're going to go ahead and give her the martial education. It'll show you what conflicts with it, as well as what does well. As you can see here, rowdy children might struggle. Okay, so this is how this works. This is how you determine what your character will be when they grow older. All right, so right now we are set to, it looks like intrigue, but we're just going to go to martial. We can only change it once, so once you do this, you can't do it again. If you want to get really min-maxy with it, you will make this decision the day before. It won't let you change it anymore, and the reason is you'll pick up all your other traits potentially, or at least some of them, and you'll know which direction will be most beneficial for your character. When you turn 6, you'll have at least 1, but potentially you can get more by the time they turn 9. I'm just going to go ahead and select this now, and she is now under martial education. Okay, so that's how you assign heirs, council invitation, sure, and that is how you declare wards and things like that, and that's how you choose if you want your son to become a religious man or a charismatic negotiator. As you say, your realm gets larger, or you really want to proposition them to be in a good spot to plot against their neighbors or their liege. You're gonna want to make sure you assign the correct education focus. Okay, Apparently we've become pregnant. Now I'm going to go ahead and speed along, and what I'm hoping for here is a either childhood events or an event that's going to go ahead and showcase stress. Right now we have a stress of 84 out of 300, and when you get to 100 stress, you're going to go ahead and suffer something called a mental break. Essentially what mental breaks do is that they take any one of your traits and they sort of create a crisis related to them. So if you are a temperate character, perhaps you will get an event related to, you know, how it's so hard being a temperate, you know, man, you know, things of that nature. That's essentially how that works. Given that it's taking some time for an event, I might go ahead and place a cut here, and I will see you when we get one. Okay, so here we have now an event that is fired. This is related to being the guardian of the character. So by choosing to become this character's guardian, you're going to get events like this. Now, as you can see here, unlike Rowdy, which is what she started with, we went ahead and picked up the trait Diligent. Now, what trait they get here is somewhat random. It just depends on how the child decides, you know, it's going to grow up. And what that trait is, if you click the top option, they will just keep it. So whether this is diligent or deceitful or ambitious or what have you, whatever trait they decide, this is going to stay the same. It incurs no stress penalty, and they just get to keep it. There are a ton of different flavor events related to all sorts of different things that might happen in a child's life, and essentially this is just going to relate to what trait they get. Now, if you want to interfere, depending on what this is, you can change it to one of three traits. Like I said, you can make them keep it, you can interfere, and then you can get some second trait, or you can interfere and get some sort of third trait. All depends on the event. Now, if you choose to interfere in your child's upbringing, you will get stress. No matter what traits you have, like even if I myself was generous or patient, by choosing to interfere and change their trait, you will gain stress. So I'm going to do that not only to showcase that you can do this, but also because I want to do a mental break. So we're going to gain 36 stress. We're going to give her patient. And we're going to go ahead and click on that just for the fun of it. And now here, this is a mental break. Now, if we go to our child, you're going to see here, she has picked up patient. Ta-da! I don't necessarily think that was the correct decision. I think diligent was fine, but you know, if you want to do, you can do it. Now, we have reached stress level 1, and you're going to be presented with 3 different types of events here. Okay? Now, each of these desires are clearly interfering in my life, but what should I do about them? Now, the reason we can do this is related to our traits, zealous, calm, and diligent. And typically these events that you're going to get are going to be direct contrast to that. Like I said, the temperate example or whatever. Perhaps a new god will help me because I am zealous. You know, maybe a different kind of outlet will help because I believe that one's the diligent one. And then the bite my lip I believe is calm. Okay. So in this case, let's say, I don't know. Let's go ahead and do a different kind of outlet for help. And what that'll do is, because this is a pretty positive one, we're going to lose 39 straight. We're going to gain the trait athletic. And we're going to, if we're still stressed in 5 years, we may suffer a mental outbreak. Additionally, you know, mental focus, things like that. So that's going to bring us back down underneath 100. And what that means is we no longer suffer any penalties. Each stress level incurs health penalties and fertility penalties. And, as you go higher, they get more extreme. However, anytime you're under 100, it doesn't matter between 0 and 99, you suffer no penalties whatsoever. Okay? Then mental breaks get worse. So in other words, you saw in the event that if we were still stressed in 5 years, we could become another mental break. That second mental break will always be a much more negative event because you had another one within that 5 years. Certain lifestyles and things can benefit from being stressed. Thriving in chaos, for instance, +4 martial, +4 intrigue, +6 prowess for each level of stress. But you do want to be careful about how much stress you really let yourself build up. As you can see here, this is what I was talking about. At least one stress level, they are vulnerable to mental breaks. That's another thing, is that if your stress is above 1, you can just get random mental breaks as random events as well, in addition to the ones you get for each 100 breakpoint. So that's kind of how stress works, in terms of from 0 to 100, what triggers it, acting against your traits. If we got an event where a Jewish courtier were to come to our, place and we wanted to accept him, because we're a zealous character, that might stress us out. That might cause problems for us. Obviously interfering with your children causes stress. In addition to that, when your family members die, you incur stress. So let's say, for instance, my daughter were to get pneumonia and die. That would actually stress your character out. And depending on your traits, it can either be a normal amount of stress, which I believe is 45, or it can be critical and be even more than that. Certain modifiers also affect this. We are diligent, so we gain 20% more stress. We are also calm, which reduces it by 10. So, it's not the worst, but that's another thing you really want to keep in mind as well. There are certain restrictions from that. Sometimes, like if they're your rival or you're a lunatic or something like that, you won't lose stress when a close family member dies. But 9 times out of 10, you're gonna gain stress rather when your family members die. Even something that's not your heir, for instance, if your brother dies, you can gain stress. And for, like I said, almost all characters, that's pretty much the norm. Close family members dying when they're not supposed to in battle, things like that, also incurs critical stress. So that's basically the main sources. Educating a child and interfering, acting against your lifestyle traits, acting against your personality traits, rather. Events can just give you stress. And then last but certainly not least is like family members dying, things of that nature. Getting excommunicated can stress you out, stuff like that. So that about wraps up that. Like I said, we talked about wards as well. Education focus is here. Make sure to pick these so you don't just get random ones. That's how you interfere with that. You have the opportunity to do this as early as 6 and between 9, so you can select their trait there. And then assigning guardianship for both if you want to fine-tune what traits your characters are going to get, and then as well as that if you need to interfere or perhaps use them for opinion. So lastly, we're going to talk about the last 2 decisions which I have off-helmed, which is holding a feast and calling a hunt. Now, both of these can potentially lose stress. As you can see here, we might lose 52 stress because we are diligent and athletic. Our character likes calling a hunt. We might have fun doing that. Now, this host a feast thing, we don't have any particular modifiers which make us lose stress, so we're only going to lose 39, but we might do it. So let's go ahead and host a feast, and let's go ahead and look at some of these events that might happen. Welcome, friends. The feast begins. You're going to get a couple of random events underneath here. It's not a big deal. But yeah, let's go ahead and just do one random decision here, and then feast dilemma. We can form a rivalry, friendship. These are all just random events that occur whenever you do a feast or a hunt. One particularly bad one is that if you do call a hunt, sometimes your heir will accidentally murder someone, and you either have to expose them or keep it a secret, and then they get a murder secret. That's a very bad event that I've had several times in calling a hunt. Normally, calling a hunt is a very good thing, but it does have one pretty horrendous event, and that is the one that you have to be careful about. But yeah, okay, until next time. And as you can see, our stress went down from 80-something to 42. Okay, so that's how that works. We could then call a hunt consecutively if we wanted to, and then voila, now our stress level is back down to 0. So that's basically how that works. It's quite big. This is another fun event, the hunt for the White Heart. This changes depending on your culture. It can be whatever. Yeah, that's basically it. And then when the hunt concludes, you gain 150 prestige. So that's how you can sort of manage those. And again, those are available every 5 years. You can do both of these every 5 years, and that'll relieve a lot of stress pressure, especially if you plan on educating your heirs. You don't have to worry about taking a 39 or a 36 stress penalty for interfering when your child only grows up once, and you can just go ahead and get rid of almost 100 stress every 5 years. So that's how you manage that. That about concludes our episode on decisions, wards, education, and education traits. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.